Good morning. My name's Bill, and my friend Bob over here to the far right. We're conducting these consequential conversations, actually consequential conversations. That's a bit of a tongue twister for me. We're really enjoying this. We've interviewed about a dozen people so far, and today we've got a 2-for-1, actually 3-for-1. I'm not sure if the dog will talk, but and I've met Robyn here to my right before. My wife knows her quite well, but I'm going to get to know both of these people actually quite well during this interview, so I'm looking forward to it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob, and he can do a formal introduction.
Well, it's absolutely great to be here with you guys. I know Robyn somewhat, my wife also knew Robyn quite well, hospice and other things that involved. But I've known Joe since he was littler than me. I had a crush on his sister, but she never knew that. So, back in the old days at the lake. But here we're at your beautiful place at the lake, and we're here to ask you just about your life experiences, related mostly to around the valley, but you've got some worldwide life experiences too, and wouldn't mind a little bit of that. So, Joe and Robyn Monrufet, thank you for having us in your house.
Well, you're more than welcome. This is the first time we've had to sit down beside each other, Bob. So,
we sat beside each other at one of the
no,
meetings.
but I mean, one-on-one. We're not talking about something else.
Not at a meeting. Not at a meeting.
Yeah, you're a legend on the lake, Bob.
Oh,
So, yeah, you lead me on.
some legends are, aren't to be mentioned. So, but you've lived at the lake pretty well all your life.
Well, I was born and raised. My parents moved out to the lake on Faber Road in 1949, and that was the year I was born. So,
A lifer.
yeah, they talk about how they brought me and put me on the counter in a basket, and then they decided to buy the place. So, I don't know if I had to sign a check or something, but and I was on Faber Road, this side, just south of Bishop's Landing, and I think they paid $1,500 for their cabin. And that was the beginning of the family home until they sold it back in about 1985. So that's how long the Monrufet family home was there. And then this house where we're sitting now is Robyn's and my purchase about 4 years ago. I've only done a few
exciting things. Robyn, your history, or how did you end up, other than with him here at the lake? Or the valley?
Just her luck.
So I was born and raised in New Zealand, and I lived on a dairy farm with my 3 siblings and parents. And when I left high school, I went into nursing training and did 4 years of nursing in New Zealand. And then along with a girlfriend, we decided that we were going to go traveling. So I had a cousin actually who was teaching here in Port Alberni. And we boarded the Oriana in 1975. And we came up on the ship, which was a great experience. And my cousin Harley, he picked us up in Vancouver, and he was actually renting a cottage from Joe's mum and dad at the lake.
Oh,
so
karma here.
Yeah. So, being young and foolish, we quickly went through all our money, and then we had to get a job. So we rolled up to the old West Coast General Hospital, and spoke to the matron there, and she said we could start next week. Didn't really ask for much in the way of ID or training or anything like that. So for the next couple of years, we met Joe along the way, and then just kind of casual.
They were picking up traveling salesmen and everything else.
And so working at West Coast General was great. Like, the staff were wonderful. It was a great place to work in that old hospital. And then Sue and I decided we were going to go traveling, so we bought ourselves a Volkswagen van, and we quit our jobs at West Coast General, and away we went. And we got as far as Tucson, and we decided we were going to go into Mexico. And we crossed the border at Nogales, and Nogales was not a good place to cross the border. So we turned around and came back and went to San Diego, and then I decided that I was going to come back to Port Alberni, and she bought out my half of the van, and away she went. So, so I came back to Port Alberni, went right back into my old job virtually, and worked at the old hospital for until we left to go sailing, and what was that, 1979?
Now, once you got her trapped on a sailboat, she was yours, right?
Well, the part that overlaps between the two of us is that at the time that Robyn came to stay with her cousin Harley, I'd made arrangements with my father to rent the little house that Harley was renting because he was going back to New Zealand.
Oh.
And I was just completing the construction of a 34-foot wooden sailboat. So I was not at all interested in the two Kiwi girls that came from New Zealand and were going to live in Harley's house. I was interested in building the boat. So I put trucked the boat from Victoria and put it in their workshop where the little house was. And unbeknownst to me, Robyn went and asked my father if they could live with me while I finished the boat. So that was the beginning of the most enviable relationship that any young man has ever had. It's about me.
Oh, yeah.
Building a sailboat, living with two lovely young ladies.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the beginning of us together. Yeah.
I have to say, when I asked Joe's dad, he was doing something under the hood of the car, and he had his head down like this. And I said, "Oh, would you mind if we lived with Joe?" And he goes, and he just looked at me and he didn't see. So I took it as an okay.
That's right. You didn't say no, right? It's ready. Well, John. So a little back up the history a little bit because Bill wasn't aware. He said, "Well, what did Joe do?" And I said, "Well, Joe was a pilot, a captain, and that Lady Rose, maybe, and his dad, and you, Chuck, even like a little back that history up a little bit for us, you know."
Okay. First of all, it's all good luck, not good management on my part. My dad owned the Lady Rose. He and his partner, Dick McMahon, and they bought the ship when I was about 11 years old. So I was brought up going to see Dad or helping Dad on weekends or whatever. And one thing led to another, and my summer vacations where I was working for Dad on the Lady Rose as the deckhand.
So was it the Lady Rose when your dad and Dick had it, or was the U-Chuck gone by then?
Well, originally, my father and Dick McMahon worked for the U-Chuck.
They worked for
the Young Company.
As I remember you, Captain.
And then when U-Chuck went north, they could see the opening for continuation, so they bought the Lady Rose from Vancouver, and they bought it from Union Steamships. And they stretched themselves really thin, and they just started out, and it progressed. First of all, it was all freight and fish and logging camps. And over the course of time, more and more people started coming just to enjoy the trip. And it blossomed from when my mother was making sandwiches for Dad to take to lunch to Mom making sandwiches for Dad to sell. And one thing led to another, and as maybe everybody else in Port Alberni knows, it became one of the best tourist attractions I've been in town. It didn't start that way, and I was very lucky because I was in that blossoming part of the company, and I decided when I was 15 that I didn't want to do what Dad did. I was going to be an airline pilot, and I read Ernest Gann from the Company of Eagles, or in the Company of Eagles. This is Chisco, by the way. She's new to us. And I did my pilot's license and pursued trying to get the hours up. But every time I turned around, Dad was having me go to work. So I ended up engrossed on the Lady Rose, and I went to Simon Fraser University, and that didn't last, and that didn't work out very well. So I left the university and climbed on a Swedish freighter and went overseas just to get away from the trouble I was in for leaving university. So it's not that. And that was the beginning of my wanderlust. I had the urge to see and travel, and that was a great experience with a few little side journeys and ending up in jail in Japan and things like that. But other than that, I came home and I had a couple of $1,000 in my pocket, and I bought a motorcycle and headed down to South America on it. And that got me away from being in trouble again.
Yeah, I have another couple of 80 rows.
And not working on the road.
And then jail in Argentina, or
Well, actually, the way it worked though was I ended up in Central America and sold a motorcycle and joined a yacht and went into the Caribbean, and that was my first yachting experience. And it turned out, once again, good luck, not good management. The owner of the vessel, an elderly gentleman, he got cataracts in his eyes, and he had to return to the United States and I was given the boat to bring back through the Panama Canal. That was my first skipper's job.
wow, really?
Wow.
So you built a sailboat here, though?
The sailboat I started constructing before Robyn arrived in the country, and then we worked together, completed it, and moved on board to live on it and save money. And we lived on it for a year
Oh, no kidding.
before we set sail. And by that time, everybody wanted to know where we were going to go. Originally, I thought I'd go to Tierra del Fuego, but it ended up, we started saying we're going to go back to New Zealand.
Oh, no kidding.
So that was a more sensible
So you
destination.
sailed down there?
We did sail to New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we left in September. The weather was just changing, and everybody was saying, "Are you sure?" And we left and walked right into a bunch of bad weather, and
Oh, no kidding.
arrived in San Francisco. And then our journey pursued like everybody else does. We went down the coast and then across to the South Pacific, and
Oh, wow.
we spent 3 years on that trip.
Oh, you did? Wow.
Yeah,
And there was obviously no mutiny fish. You're still together.
we're still together. We actually got married in New Zealand.
No.
Well, part of Robyn will probably tell you that before we left, there was some discussion, should we have a life raft? And I was of the belief that you don't get off a boat. So we bought a diamond ring for Robyn instead of a life raft.
That was real life, right?
And I couldn't get off without
Real life, right? Yeah.
That's it.
That saved your life, man.
Best investment I ever made. No.
There you go.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And where's the sailboat now? Long gone, or?
Well, it's long gone from us. It had a bit of excitement. Not to go down that story. It was actually stolen, and we retrieved it, rebuilt it. That's a bit of a story. It lost some of its ambiance when that happened because it was sort of violated.
Yeah.
Our two boys, we have two sons, were getting bigger, and they wanted to bring friends, so the boat was getting smaller, and we were using it less.
Yeah.
So we actually sold it to a young French couple, who took it down the west coast and through the Panama and back to Europe.
Oh, no kidding. So that's where it is now, if it's still around.
No, it's apparently crossed the Atlantic a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
The last I heard, it was on the eastern seaboard of the United States.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and not very well. It was looking pretty rough.
Yeah.
So
Oh, good for you.
that's our sailboat experience.
And then you were a pilot as well, so you.
Well, that gets intertwined with my career, but because I worked for my father on the Lady Rose. I started out as a deckhand, as a youngster, and then the ship needed an engineer.
Yeah.
And my father was a certified third-class engineer, and he was able to endorse me as a fourth-class engineer, and I served as engineer in the Lady Rose for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then I eventually added up my sea time and went back to Victoria and did my master's ticket and started skippering the Lady Rose. And about this time, the Lady Rose had blossomed into owning another vessel called the Seaway Express, which was a high-speed logging
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so,
I'd never heard of that.
yeah, well, it was a 65-foot. It was a William Garden modified design, but it was very successful. It did 22 knots and carried 65 people.
Oh, wow.
And I ran that for 20 years. Every morning at 4:30 and getting home at 7 o'clock at night for 20 odd years.
Oh, really? Wow.
But
And you were skipper. You
I
were
operating
an
the
engineer.
vessel, and they wanted to keep me busy, and I was happy to stay busy. So I ended up doing everything from running boom boats, and then the company bought a tug and barge, and I ended up running the tug and barge. But one of the best parts of my good luck story, though, is that the company in the 1970s and the 80s, Mars Industries, was doing exceptionally well.
Yeah.
As everybody was in those days. One day we had a bunch of breakdowns, and the company had a float plane, and I already had my pilot license. And one day I said to Larry McKenzie, I said, I'm going to sell my sailboat and buy a helicopter. It would really save time around here. And he looked at me and he said, would you fly a helicopter? I said, of course. The next Monday, he came back and he said, we bought a helicopter. And that was the beginning of 10 years of flying a helicopter as well as running the boat.
No kidding.
Yeah, so we used to keep the Seaway Express running, and then the helicopter was in New Chucklasset Inlet. And once I get off
the Seaway, then you fly the helicopter guys up to the land.
Or run the barge, whichever came up first. I used to say, well, the biggest sandbox in the world.
Yeah, biggest toy box. Yeah, that's cool.
Biggest sandbox. Yeah.
That's really good.
And the whole time, Robyn was going to work daily.
Yeah.
Robyn can explain her career. She went from being a lowly maternity nurse to
Lowly.
Well, if I can interject before Robyn gets going, your history on the Lady Rose is interesting because my son, I ran the Chamber of Commerce and the Visitor Center, so I became very familiar with Lady Rose Marine. But of course, it was Sir Francis Barclay by then.
Yeah.
And my son got a job with them out at Sea Sharp Lodge and did a lot of the boating through there, checking all the islands, the camping and stuff, right? But his time there, going back and forth on the Francis Barclay, changed his career focus. He was originally in mechanical engineering in UVic, and he came back at the end of one summer. He says, "Dad, I'm going to become a marine engineer," and so that's what he is now. And he's actually
way up there now.
He's way up.
Yeah,
he's a first, and he's in courses now to become a chief engineer. He's 31. So he's not really well. But sea time is interesting too. He needed sea time, right? So, and that sea time leapfrogged him over a lot of people that are older and been a marine engineer for longer, right?
Yeah.
Interesting, but yeah.
Well, isn't it fun? I mean, my little career had a little sideline, and I didn't go into why I stopped running the vessels, but I had a medical issue with my hearing loss, and after I couldn't run the ships as skipper anymore, I went to the Middle East and ran yachts, and that was but going back to Sea Sharp Landing, which was originally part of the Lady Rose company after my father sold it.
Oh, okay.
And my sister was managing. She had a water for
Marshall management.
And I probably crossed paths with your son because I used to go down there and run the boats and the water tanks.
Well, my son, he'd be well be. This would have been like 2016 or so, 2015.
Yeah.
Still,
really? Okay.
Yes. What was the guy's name out there?
Bronze way.
Hank Pope? Huh?
No, but after Hank. After Hank.
Yeah.
Him and his wife. A couple that came after Carrie and Hank.
Yeah.
On this big sailboat.
Yeah, the big sailboat anchored there.
Sorry, his name.
I should remember it too.
Yeah,
a bit gruff he was, but
yeah, he was a little gruff. Yeah, he wasn't.
His wife was lovely.
Yeah,
and he was a little gruff.
Yeah, but yeah, interesting. How these things happen, right? That carve your career.
Absolutely. And, but the key to it is jumping to opportunity.
Yeah,
it's really.
I don't
don't think you got to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like I almost sailed around the world after I bailed out of Simon Fraser University. Okay, just prior. Okay, and I had 3 friends, Pete Rodford and company. There was a sailmaker in Old Bay named James, and he was getting old, and he had a 42-foot catch, big sailboat, and we all put our money together, 1967, and we were buying it, and one of the guys had sailed around, done a lot of sailing, and I was one of the 4 partners going to go on this sailing excursion, and then 2 bailed out. So I took my $1,500 that I bought the little Bash and Bit ski boat that Charlie Rambo.
Bash and Bit, oh, I remember
Little boat, and 67 ski boat, and ended up on the lake. So that was my sailing career. Went from a sailboat to a ski.
But it wasn't Bash and Bit, wasn't it Passion Pit?
Well, it was, but it was a small bay with a long tail, and
We never thought.
my parents thought it was Bash and Bit, but we told the girls it was Bash.
Yes. Yeah.
But that I came very close to getting to sail around the world. I always wanted to, and then I really, with the Bilbo, and your dad's boat, I've always loved it. That was I came very close to doing something with that.
Yeah.
I bought a 3-day excursion on it from the guy that had out in Comox for a while at a political event, and I paid for it. I like a bid on it, and I won the bid, and then I didn't use it that year because it was late in the year, and they quit chartering out of Desolation Sound Charters, and so the next year I go, and I use it? Oh no, it's in Vancouver for sale.
Oh.
And so I never did get to go, and that was my dream, was sailing.
Yeah. You gotta have dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're still living our dream here.
We are. Well, like I said, it's good luck, not good management.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I cut Robyn off when I'm.
Well, my life story isn't.
I'll pay for the.
Well, it's pretty interesting. You're involved with all I ever hear is kudos about you and Island Health and all you've done. So he's
Been with I was with Island Health for a long time, of course, but yeah. So when we came back from cruising, I worked in the maternity unit. I was maternity trained in New Zealand, and then I moved to the intensive care unit for many years, and worked with Fai Chan, he was just the greatest fellow to work with. And I loved it in ICU. And then one day I thought, I really don't want to check this crash cart one more time. So I moved to home care. And home care was really just starting up. And we worked out of the building on Burke Road. And so I did that for about a couple of years. And then our manager, who was coming from Parksville, she left, and they asked if I would, take over that position for a bit. And I thought they were going to, look for somebody to hire and do it permanently. So I stayed on, and then what happened then? Then Island Health was formed, right? So everything changed in terms of home care services, and then I ended up, when the new hospital was completed, helping to move the extended care unit into their new digs, and then without being interviewed, I was promoted to managing Port Alberni and Parksville, and then Port Alberni Parksville then became Port Alberni Parksville and Nanaimo. So I had a really busy job, actually, for a number of years. It was a great experience. Driving to and from Nanaimo every day wasn't that
Can I add
very
some
neat.
praise here? During the time that I was getting up at 4:30 and going to work for 13 hours a day, Robyn was getting up and going to university and was starting her course and ended up getting her degree. And that's what carried her on to management. And then after she got her degree, and she just blasé mentioned that she worked in Nanaimo, but for 3 years she drove every morning from Port Alberni to Nanaimo hour and back again.
Yeah. Wow.
She worked hard.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so then what? 8 years ago now, I decided it was time to retire and call it quits and spend some time at home. And then I got really involved with hospice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still with hospice?
I am.
You are, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I was the board chair for a number of years.
Yeah.
I would know with Jen.
Yeah.
After Jen, actually,
After Jen.
actually, yeah, it was Jen that actually
She kind of recruited Jen.
She recruited me. She was.
And it was Bob's wife, Jen, that recruited Jen. So it's
It's a small community. There's only 12 of us live here.
And I must have been really naive because I didn't even realize that Jen was actually
yeah.
grooming me.
I didn't know that Jan was grooming Jan.
I don't know that either.
And that was just at the start of COVID. So they were difficult years.
Yeah, tough years.
But it's a really good cause.
So Joe became the spark plug of restoring the teak lady, the 100-year-old teak boat. It's been in his shop. He's got a woodworking shop, and where he does his all his woodworking. He does some beautiful woodwork. That's where we did that teak. He started to rebuild the teak lady.
Oh,
It was nice. And then they've also got pet. They're not really farm animals, they're pet goats. Sheep, sorry, pet sheep that follow you around there. That they
Pet sheep, yeah.
they walk. If you go there, they walk around like they're like
the dog.
pet animals that follow you around. So
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you didn't ask about the shop, but what happened when I dealt with the loss of my job, I had a friend in the Middle East who was working in Dubai, and he knew I could handle a boat, and he said, come on over and I'll give you a job. So I went to the Middle East on a couple of trips for 3 months at a time.
Oh, wow.
Skipper jobs, and did some deliveries down to the Seychelles and Oman and things like that, and Bahrain, all those places.
All the places you wouldn't want to be right now.
I didn't want to be there.
So you've been through the Strait, I guess?
What?
You've been through the Strait?
Yeah, Straits were more beautiful.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then when I came home, I wasn't going to do that again. So I decided I would build rowboats, and I started a little workshop, and then we bought some property, and then we ended up moving the workshop to the property. And that's where Bob is talking about where the wood workshop is.
behind Sumas School now. I'm behind there. So.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, and our older son lives there in the house, and it's sort of the family drop-in place, as well as anybody else that sees smoke coming out of the chimney, they drop in, and
Yeah. Like I was mentioning, my son kind of doing something similar to you. Well, he's now, his hobby now is buying up old boats and old outboards and rebuilding them. So he tears apart these old boats and, rebuilds them and then flips them.
great.
And his garage now is full of old outboards.
Yeah.
The older, the better.
Oh,
He likes the old.
well, he must like Bob.
My collection of old outboards.
Oh, he'd get them all running.
A couple of these might run.
Oh, I bet you some of them do.
1917 Evinrude.
He got an old Evinrude running, actually, recently, probably in the 40s.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. You've got that shop now.
Fine.
You've got that shop now.
Well, that's where I'm headed right after this.
So I had that teak lady that used to be at Sproat Sawmills over here, Manning Sproat Sawmills, as a boomboat came from Hong Kong. I was always going to restore it because in my mind I wanted to have an old boat put around the lake. Okay, and I moved it, damaged it, moving it, and everything else. And I'm not a woodworker, so I donated it to the Maritime Heritage Society, which Joe's on. And somehow I ended up on the Maritime Heritage Society. Somehow, and then somehow we're back. We ended up restoring it. So I got some lessons in how not to deal with stuff because Joe was showing me, no, not that tool, no. But he has all the tools. His workshop has every piece.
Oh, wow, that's great. Imagine. So.
Yeah, it's a big part of our family life because like Robyn, the farming came out in Robyn because there's 5 acres there.
Yeah.
And that's why we have sheep.
Oh, really?
We had quite a few. We ate a few, but now these ones have names. I mean, so
I can't do it. Yeah. Well,
Tonight's dinner is Lois.
Oh, that's
there's a few studies of how some of those ended up on the plate too. We won't go down that way.
Yeah.
So Joe's also still quite involved in the community association out here, and it's changed a fair bit. But Joe's, like me, is a bit of a watchdog of the lake. What goes on good, what goes on bad. And we've been noting the abandoned docks, boathouses, wharves, and even boats that have been left derelict around the lake, and kind of sad.
Yeah.
But we do keep pushing to
It is. I know we're not supposed to be too political, but it is a big thing. I think.
Yeah.
The stewardship in Sprout Lake. I mean, Robyn appreciates it as much as I do, and even though we've been here longer, but it's just it's a huge dilemma because the values of people are changing, the technology, the boats, and everything else are changing. And as everybody knows, if you own something by the waterfront, you're one step above, you might say. And so people are coming here without the background and without, even in many cases, without the integrity. And I don't say I want to stop that, but at the same time, we can't lose sight of the values that United to live with. We were spoiled. Bob and I were spoiled with our history. I mean, when we first moved here, we used to send our kids in a rowboat.
And they were going on living today. When I was a little kid, they found me at 3 years old down at the end of Sterling Arm in a rowboat, and the Ericksons, Marilyn Erickson or Marilyn Blake at the time, they towed me back to Pitsalod. I was wearing K-pop life jacket. It was wonderful. But wind came up and I couldn't row back.
Okay.
So,
and that's really.
But those were the days on the lake. The kids all took on like all of our kids, because we bought them boats from very young power boats before the rules changed, and they had to wear life jackets. Well, as soon as they got out of sight around the corner, life jackets came off. And I'd get out there and you'd watch them coming back, and they'd stop off. That's a life jacket. I'm after the dog. That's just the way it was.
Oh, of course. Of course.
And these people, the new people that are moving here, and bless their soul, there's a lot of them with a lot of wherewithal, and they're doing a lot of good things, but they've come from often municipal cities where most things are looked after for you. Sewer, water, garbage pickup, street lighting, everything's done for you. Here, you have to look after yourself. And you don't.
That falls apart.
And my buzz line is when I see people doing things that I just look at them and I say, do you realize you're changing what you came here for? The people come here and they think they've come to the Wild West and they just love it. They just get all romantic about it. And then next thing you know, they have to have a manicured yard. They have to have street lights. They have to have everything as they would like it. And then if you take a look back, they've actually changed what they appreciated when they first.
Exactly.
So old school, old fart. That's all I am.
But that's good. That's what we need here.
You have to keep it. You only get a conscience by being around for a while. I didn't grow a conscience till I was 40.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty good. So we've enjoyed the conversation, and again, this is Consequential Conversations. Robyn and Geo Monrufet, and I certainly am pretty impressed with what I heard today. I had no idea. And so thanks for joining us. And again, follow us on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Bye for now.
Thank you, guys. That's cute. We got rung off. Just like